13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is the best video game I've ever played in terms of storytelling, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, full disclaimer, this video will not be like my other ones, it won't be a big essay. This is kind of a recommendation for people who want to check out the game, so that I can tell you why the method of storytelling this game uses is so perfect within the genre, and how this game masterfully ties 13 stories into one in such a fantastic way that I have never seen ever done before. Now, full disclaimer, this video will have no spoilers. All the gameplay will be from the prologue, so you don't need to worry. Now, without further ado, let me tell you why 13 Sentinels storytelling is so damn perfect. So before I say why the method of storytelling in this game is so perfect, I should first detail the layout of the game. And the game is split into three main modes, those being Remembrance, Analysis, and Destruction. Remembrance is likely where you're going to be spending 80% or more of your time, because that is where the 13 different stories of the different protagonists are told. The Destruction mode, I'm not going to dig into that because that's gameplay. It's fun gameplay, but if anyone does have any gripes with it, it will likely be in there, because some people don't like it. The art is kind of killed in that mode, but it's fine. The Analysis mode, well, it's not really a mode, it's essentially just a massive compendium of all the lore and details, all the events of the game, all the lore, because this game's storyline gets incredibly complicated, and to those of you who have not yet played this game, I strongly advise you to use the mystery files immediately. Use the points that you get from battle and unlock the lore and read through it every now and again, because this is the kind of game where you can't just play it, take none of it in and just hope that it's all going to work out. I played this game through and didn't even touch analysis the entire time, but that was a mistake. I would advise you to read through it so that you don't get lost or confused with the lore, because this game is incredibly complicated. It's the most complex storyline I've ever experienced in my life, which is why this mode exists and why I would strongly recommend you take use of it, because it is a great way to make sure that you are refining your knowledge of the game's lore and storyline. Now, I'm going to tell you why the Remembrance mode is so brilliant, and it's because at first you only started with 5 different protagonists, and you could only go down someone's route so far before the game blocks you off and gives you something else to do in order to be able to unlock that part of the story. Whether that be, oh I don't know, reach episode 3 in another person's storyline, or complete so-and-so battle before you reach this point. And that is so that the game can monitor how far ahead you get, so that you don't get ahead of yourself. The game is non-linear, you can kind of choose where you want to go, but there is obviously a limit. You can't just go down anyone's route and keep going until you reach 100%. The game stops you so that you don't hear one piece of lore before you're supposed to, if that makes sense, so you don't hear a spoiler in someone else's arc, because that's the thing. With 13 stories that all intertwine, the game has to be clever and has to make sure that you don't get too far ahead of yourself in one person's arc as to not hear a spoiler that was supposed to be revealed in another person's arc. And that is one of the strongest things in this game's storytelling, and why I think it's so masterful, the fact they were able to do that and monitor it in such a perfect way. Now, one other thing that I want to mention that I can't unfortunately really show you in detail because of spoilers being littered across the whole thing, but the game's flowchart system and how the idea of the thought cloud kind of makes for a bit of puzzle solving in the game's narrative, where you have to match certain keywords with certain actions in the storyline, and in certain characters' plots, for example Juro's, you will do certain things and you will get different endings to different episodes. There is only one true ending, I'm not going to act like this is some branching storyline, but the arcs are very branched. You might do one episode of an arc before you do another one, if it necessarily doesn't matter what order you do them in. Some people's arcs are very linear, but for example Ryoko's, you can do Ryoko's arc in completely different orders. Same with Juro's in a sense, because there are so many things you can do with the Thought Cloud. For example, there's one part where you have to get rid of Kyuto, the guy who hangs around with you all the time, but it's not necessarily easy to get rid of him, and you will get different endings to the episode depending on what action you take. This is a really cool system, and the fact that this storytelling is so detailed in the fact they have a whole flowchart for each person's arc, there's different ways that you can do the individual episodes, it makes for such a well told story, and the fact that it all comes together in the end so beautifully is fantastic in my opinion. Also, just before we get to the finale, I just want to say the art style of this game, gorgeous, absolutely amazing, my favourite art style in any game ever. Also the soundtrack is what I'm playing in the background of this video, really cool soundtrack, I adore it. But yeah, like I said, this is a short video, I want to just wrap this up quickly now. That is why 13 Sentinels storytelling is so good. all these characters' stories intertwine with one another. They are all so branching in the sense of, you know, doing one person's arc before another. There are so many different ways you can play this game, despite them all coming to the same conclusion. You can focus on one person's story, or you can focus on another. Though there are limitations, like I said, you might have to do one certain thing before you can continue one person's arc, because of the fact that there are spoilers in that arc. And when I replayed this game, I didn't play it in the same sense that I originally did. I actually did each person's arc separately. You know, I did Jiro's arc, then Megumi's, then Yuki's, blah blah, so on and so forth. And that is when I realised just how messy the story can get, because I was hearing lore before I was actually supposed to, and that was why I truly realised just how well structured the story is, in the sense that when I replayed it I was like, oh, I wasn't supposed to know this until I did this person's arc and got to this point, and that is why the storytelling is so perfect. It is so convoluted, but in the best way possible, and that is why 13 Sentinels storytelling is so perfect. Anyway, I'm going to give this game a 10 out of 10, no doubt. Go ahead and pick yourself up 13 Sentinels, whether that be on the Switch or the PlayStation 4. Both are fantastic additions, no matter which one you get. This is the best storytelling I've seen in a video game ever. One of the best and most diverse casts I've ever seen in a game ever, albeit some of them are quite tropey. An amazing soundtrack, fantastic art style, and a plot that just has you gripped to your seat the entire time, because it is a long, convoluted storyline that is put together in such a fantastic way by the end, and wrapped up in a way that just has you completely blown away, taking inspiration from all elements of sci-fi across the decades, and creating kind of a love letter to the genre, is how I see this game. So if you enjoy science fiction, you will love 13 Sentinels, one of the best stories I have ever experienced in a video game of all time, and the best video game I have ever played.
I just